An arrogant maestro challenges an ordinary woman to perform completely unaware she's a musical prodigy. When everyone expects her to fail, she sits at the grand piano, takes a deep breath, and plays a piece so magnificent it leaves the entire room speechless. Olivia Bennett's fingers glided over the worn keys of the upright piano in her modest Boston apartment. Morning light spilled through the faded curtains as she finished Mozart's sonata with a gentle flourish, then glanced at her watch. "Already to 15, she muttered, closing the piano lid reluctantly. Late again. Her apartment sat in one of Boston's older neighborhoods where historic brownstones had been converted into affordable units. It wasn't fancy, but her landlord had allowed her to keep the old piano, which was all that mattered. She hurried to change into her uniform, a simple navy cardigan and black pants, for her job at the Westbridge Music Academy, where she taught beginner piano to children. 20 years ago, Olivia had been a prodigy at the New England Conservatory, destined for greatness. The daughter of a single father who had sacrificed everything for her education, she had been on track to become one of the greats, but then life happened. Her father's accident, the mounting medical bills, and the difficult choice to pause her studies to care for the man who had given her everything. By the time her father passed away, Olivia's savings were gone, and the momentum of her early career had evaporated. Music is still music, her father had told her in those final days. Whether you play at Symphony Hall or in our living room, it's what's in your heart that matters. Olivia carried those words with her, finding joy in teaching children and playing at small community events. The elite classical world that had once been within her reach now seemed a lifetime away. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rachel, her closest friend. "Don't forget about tonight. Symphony fundraiser, I got you that catering gig. Good money plus free access to the event. Wear something nice." Rachel worked as an event coordinator for the Boston Symphony Orchestra and had pulled strings to get Olivia a job serving at tonight's exclusive fundraiser. The extra money would help with rent. As she headed to work, Olivia pondered what "wear something nice" meant. Her wardrobe consisted mainly of practical clothes. The nicest thing she owned was her navy cardigan paired with her only black dress. Boston had changed over the years, becoming increasingly divided between old money, new tech wealth, and everyone else. The classical music scene had changed too, seeming more about status than the music itself. At the academy, Olivia greeted her first student with a warm smile. "Remember," she told 8-year-old Emma, "music isn't about impressing others. It's about expressing what's in your heart." The Worthington Concert Hall glittered with crystal chandeliers. Women in designer gowns and men in tailored tuxedos mingled, champagne flutes in hand, their laughter mixing with the gentle notes from a string quartet. Olivia felt painfully out of place in her simple black dress and navy cardigan as she balanced a tray of canapes. Her eyes kept drifting to the magnificent Steinway grand piano in the adjoining recital room, its polished ebony surface gleaming under the lights. "Quite the instrument, isn't it?" a voice beside her remarked. Olivia turned to find an elderly woman watching her with knowing eyes. "It's beautiful," Olivia replied, unable to hide her admiration. "You play?" the woman asked. "I used to. Now I just teach," Olivia answered with a small smile. "What a shame," the woman said. "I'm Margaret Whitmore, by the way, board member." "Olivia Bennett," she responded, "and just the help tonight." Margaret chuckled. "Music doesn't care about job titles, my dear." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a group of conservatory students, led by a tall man with perfectly styled hair. James Harrington, the youngest piano department chair in the conservatory's history, and the evening's featured performer. "Ah, Margaret," he greeted, kissing the elderly woman's cheek. "I've been looking for you." His eyes briefly landed on Olivia, dismissing her instantly as staff. He plucked a canapé from her tray without acknowledging her presence. "James, this is Olivia Bennett," Margaret said pointedly. "She's a pianist as well." James's eyebrows rose slightly. "Is that so professional?" "I teach beginners," Olivia answered, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. James smiled thinly. "How charming. Always good to have people introducing the basics to children." One of his students snickered. "Not everyone can handle the rigors of true classical training," James continued. "It takes a certain caliber of musician." Olivia knew she should stay quiet, but something made her speak. "True musical understanding goes beyond technical training," she said quietly. James's smile froze. "Excuse me. I just mean that technique without heart is empty," Olivia elaborated. James's expression hardened. "An interesting perspective from someone serving appetizers. Where did you study?" "I was at the conservatory, actually," Olivia replied, "years ago." "Were you?" His tone was laced with doubt. "And yet here you are. Well, I suppose that illustrates my point perfectly." Margaret's expression darkened. "James, It's fine, Olivia interjected. I should get back to work. As she turned to leave, James called after her. You know, we'll be having an impromptu performance session after the formal program. Staff are welcome to observe from the back if you'd like to see what heart combined with actual skill looks like. Olivia could feel the stares as she nodded stiffly and moved away, her face burning with humiliation. Don't let him get to you, Margaret whispered. That man's talent is overshadowed only by his ego. The formal portion of the fundraiser concluded with James performing a technically flawless Liszt piece. As the evening transitioned to its relaxed phase, Olivia was clearing champagne flutes when she overheard James holding court near the piano. The problem with music education today, he was saying, is that we've lowered our standards and everyone believes they can be a pianist with a few lessons and passion. He made air quotes around the word. What we need is more rigor, more discipline, James continued, like we had in the classical traditions. Some would argue that rigidity stifles creativity, Margaret interjected. James laughed dismissively. Creativity without foundation is just noise, Margaret. The conversation was interrupted when the catering manager approached Olivia. We're short on staff for cleanup. Can you stay an extra hour? He asked loudly. All eyes turned to Olivia. She nodded, aware of the attention. Ah, our pianist turned server, James said. Tell me, what was your perspective on Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody? As a former student of the conservatory, surely you have some insight. The challenge in his voice was unmistakable. The room held its breath as Olivia carefully set down her tray. It was technically perfect, she said. James's smile widened. Thank you, but it lacked heart. Olivia finished quietly. A shocked murmur ran through the assembled guests. James's expression darkened. Heart, he repeated. That nebulous quality amateurs cling to when they can't master technique. Music isn't just about playing notes correctly, she said. It's about making them mean something. James's eyes narrowed. Easy to critique from the sidelines, isn't it? Why don't you show us this heart you keep mentioning? He gestured toward the Steinway. I'm working, Olivia said, glancing at her catering manager. I'm sure your employer would excuse you for a moment of cultural education. James pressed. Unless, of course, you're all talk. Margaret stepped forward. James, that's enough. But he was on a roll now. One piece your choice. Show us this emotional quality that apparently my playing lacks. Olivia felt trapped, cornered by her own words and James's manipulation. Just as I thought, James interrupted smoothly. It's always easier to criticize than to perform. Perhaps stick to teaching chopsticks to children. That did it, the dismissive way he referenced her students. The children who approached music with pure joy broke something loose inside Olivia. One piece, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. James looked surprised, then pleased. Excellent. Let's see what serving canapes has done for your conservatory training. As Olivia moved toward the piano, her catering manager caught her arm. What are you doing? He hissed. It'll just take a minute, Olivia promised. Standing before the gleaming Steinway, Olivia suddenly felt the weight of the moment. What was she doing? She hadn't performed in public for years, certainly not on an instrument of this caliber, and definitely not in front of Boston's musical elite. James stood nearby, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on his face. He'd orchestrated this perfectly. Either she would refuse and prove his point, or she would play and likely embarrass herself. Any day now, he said, checking his watch. A memory surfaced. Her father's voice. Music is a conversation, Liv. It's not about showing off. It's about saying something true. Ms. Bennett is having second thoughts, it seems, James announced to the room. Former students. The word stung. Olivia had never stopped being a musician just because life had forced her from the path she'd once imagined. She thought of her students whom she taught that music was about courage and expression, not perfection. What kind of teacher would she be if she couldn't follow her own advice? Olivia placed her hands on the keys. The cool ivory beneath her fingertips felt like coming home. Actually, she said quietly, I was just deciding what to play. James raised an eyebrow. Something with heart, I presume, he said mockingly. Olivia nodded, a calm settling over her. Exactly. She would play Debussy's Clair de Lune, not the most technically challenging piece, but one that required sensitivity and emotional depth. One that spoke to her own journey. I'll be playing Debussy, she announced. James smirked. Clair de Lune, I presume, a bit cliché, don't you think? Olivia didn't respond. Instead, she began to play. The first notes emerged delicate as moonlight on water. She felt the subtle shift in the room, the slight intake of breath, the suspension of movement. She didn't play with romantic sentimentality, but brought a clarity and emotional honesty that made the familiar piece sound new. As she continued, her nervousness melted away. She wasn't playing for James or the wealthy patrons, but for her father who had sacrificed everything. For her students who found joy in simple melodies. For everyone who had ever felt diminished. The music flowed through her, each phrase telling a story of loss and resilience, of dreams deferred but not abandoned. When she reached the piece's climax, her fingers drawing a rich, resonant swell from the piano, she opened her eyes to find the room transformed. The crowd had gone completely still. Even the servers had paused, trays in hand. James's smirk had vanished, replaced by an expression of confusion and reluctant reconsideration. As Olivia approached the final gentle cascade of notes, bringing the piece to its hushed conclusion, she made her decision. She would not end with Debussy, and in that fragile silence, she decided no more shrinking back. Tonight she would roar. Without even a breath of pause, her fingers attacked the keys with sudden explosive force. The peaceful moonlight of Debussy shattered as the thunderous opening of Chopin's revolutionary etude erupted from the piano. The dramatic transformation from serene meditation to revolutionary fire was so shocking that several guests physically stepped back. The transition was like watching a quiet stream suddenly transform into raging rapids, where Debussy had been all moonlight and reflection. Chopin was lightning and thunder. Her peaceful demeanor transformed too, her posture, straightening eyes flashing with intensity as her hands became a blur across the keys. This wasn't just impressive playing, this was a declaration of war against every assumption in the room. The revolutionary etude, with its technical complexity and emotional intensity, was Olivia's manifesto, her reclamation of identity. The technical challenges, the rapid 16th notes, the complex cross rhythms, the demanding left-hand patterns melted beneath her fingers as if they were the simplest exercises. Yet it wasn't just technical mastery that held the room spellbound. Olivia played with a raw, emotional authenticity that transformed Chopin's revolutionary fervor into something deeply personal. Each note carried the weight of her own quiet revolution against circumstances, against dismissal, against the narrowing of possibility. James's students exchanged glances of disbelief. Their teacher had just suggested this woman was an amateur, yet she was performing one of the most difficult pieces in the classical repertoire with a level of skill that exceeded their own. As Olivia navigated the etude's treacherous middle section, a strand of hair escaped its pin, falling across her face. She didn't brush it away, didn't break her connection with the music. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her expression remained transported, almost otherworldly in its focus. James stood rigid, the color draining from his face as he watched Olivia's fingers execute perfect runs and arpeggios. His expression moved from disbelief to something more complex, a gradual, reluctant recognition of something he had missed, something he perhaps had forgotten in his own pursuit of technical perfection. For the first time in years, he was witnessing music that went beyond mere notes, beyond the rigid parameters he had built his career upon. It both humbled and unsettled him deeply. "Still thinks she should stick to teaching chopsticks," Margaret murmured beside him. As Olivia approached the piece's conclusion, the entire room leaned forward in breathless anticipation. Servers with forgotten trays, owners with untouched champagne, students with widened eyes. The final chords resounded through the hall with triumphant clarity. For one heartbeat, there was absolute silence. Then the room erupted. Applause crashed like a wave. People rose to their feet, abandoning any pretense of aristocratic reserve. Someone shouted "Brava" from the back, setting off a chain of similar exclamations. Olivia remained seated, momentarily stunned. She had not played for applause, but for truth. Through the blur of movement and noise, Olivia spotted Margaret beaming with vindication. Rachel was jumping up and down. Even the catering manager stood with his mouth agape. Only James remained still amidst the standing ovation. His face, a complex map of emotions, shock, disbelief, and something deeper. He had not just witnessed an impressive performance. He had been confronted with the limits of his own understanding, the rigid boundaries between professional and amateur, between technique and emotion, had been shattered before his eyes. Olivia stood, finally smoothing her simple black dress. She gave a modest bow. The applause continued, showing no signs of abating. As the applause gradually subsided, wealthy patrons who had barely glanced at her all evening now pressed business cards into her hands. Conservatory board members introduced themselves, asking where she had studied, why they hadn't heard of her before. "That was extraordinary," a silver-haired man told her. "I've heard that piece performed around the world, but never with such authenticity." "Are you currently affiliated with any musical institution?" a woman inquired. "I teach at Westbridge Music Academy for Children," Olivia replied. The woman looked puzzled, as if unable to reconcile Olivia's talent with her modest position. Through the crowd, Olivia caught sight of James. He stood slightly apart, his earlier smugness replaced by a contemplative stillness. When their eyes met, he gave her a small, tight nod. Not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement that spoke volumes. James approached through the parting crowd. "Miss Bennett," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "That was unexpected. You have a remarkable gift," he continued, the words coming with difficulty. "One that deserves proper cultivation. We should discuss your future." He handed her his card. "My office tomorrow." Olivia looked at the card, then back at him. "I've already cultivated my gift, Mr. Harrington, but thank you." Her calm rejection left him momentarily speechless. In the days that followed, Olivia's life transformed. Video of her performance went viral in classical music circles. The Boston Herald ran a feature titled "Hidden Virtuoso, the Server Who Stunned the Symphony." Offers came from concert promoters, conservatories, even record labels. Yet Olivia approached this sudden recognition with authentic humility. She accepted a part-time position at the conservatory, teaching advanced students, but kept her job at Westbridge Music Academy. She agreed to a limited number of performances, including a charity recital to raise funds for music education in underserved communities. When asked by a reporter why she hadn't pursued a professional career earlier, Olivia smiled. "Life took me on a different path, but I never stopped being a musician, whether anyone was listening or not." James, to his credit, became one of her most vocal supporters, though they maintained a respectful professional distance. 6 months later, Olivia performed to a sold-out audience at the same concert hall. In the front row sat her students from Westbridge Music Academy, their faces shining with pride and possibility. As she took her place at the piano, Olivia wore her signature navy cardigan over an elegant black dress, a deliberate reminder of where she'd come from and who she still was. Before beginning, she addressed the audience. "Music isn't about credentials or pedigree. It's about speaking truth through sound. Never let anyone convince you that your voice isn't worth hearing." Then she played not to impress, but to connect, just as she always had. Has Olivia's journey touched your heart today? Remember that brilliance often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to shine through. The most remarkable talents sometimes exist in the most unexpected places, perhaps even within you. Have you ever witnessed someone defy expectations and reveal extraordinary abilities when given the chance? Or maybe you've been underestimated, carrying gifts the world has yet to recognize. Share your story in the comments below. From Boston to Seattle, from Miami to Portland, wherever you're watching from, your stories matter to us. Your engagement helps Sir Alex Stories continue bringing these powerful human moments to light. Subscribe and stay inspired with Sir Alex Stories, where true greatness needs no introduction, only the courage to stand up and be heard.